I'm joined by Hudson Institute Senior Fellow Rebeccah Heinrichs. Rebeccah, welcome.
Thank you.
So Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin is sending more military resources to the region to bolster deterrence. What's your analysis of that?
Well, first of all, this administration removed a lot of this military equipment from the region when it first came into office. Clearly, there's still a persistent problem from Iran. This THAAD battery is a missile defense system, Patriot batteries. That would not be a signal that they are worried about Hamas escalating. Those are weapon systems that would defend against the kinds of capabilities that Iran has. And so the United States is clearly sending a message to Iran that these recent Iranian-backed terrorist attacks against U.S. forces, ships throughout the region will not deter the United States from defending Israel.
What do you make of the delay in terms of the ground invasion of Gaza? And do you believe President Biden is lecturing the Israelis on the military tactics they can use?
That's certainly what it seems like at this point. President Biden once again sent out another tweet cautioning the Israelis to follow the laws of war. That is becoming an irritant, I would suspect, for the IDF, because Israel really has world-class operators. They have lawyers carefully operating with the IDF, carefully picking out targets to make sure that they comply with the laws of war. This is something that Israel notoriously is very good at. They are not allowed to target civilians as such. They have to hit and target military targets as such. But of course, Hamas has made Gaza essentially an entire militarized city where they've embedded with civilians. But again, Israel so far has shown no sign that they are not complying carefully with the laws of war.
So Secretary of State Tony Blinken today said there is the likelihood of Iranian escalation. What should the United States do in response or to be prepared?
I mean, I think that the United States has several responsibilities here. One is to signal to Iran not to get involved directly. Iran doesn't want to, but Iran also understands that they can try to scare the United States from providing certain weapons capabilities in the region. And so the United States should communicate that they will not be deterred from doing that. And then we should provide Israel with whatever additional kinds of military capabilities they need, specifically Iron Dome interceptors or these JDAM air systems. And then the last piece, I would say, the United States must clearly and constantly communicate to the rest of the world that Israel has a right to defend itself and is complying with the laws of war. Israel is not going to have a friendly audience with the UN and with other capitals, and so the best friend it can have is the United States, and so we must be clear on that point.
President Biden ended last week rolling out a $105 billion funding request for the war in Israel, or to help Israel, Ukraine, and even some for the southern border. You have argued that the United States can and must support our allies, not necessarily that package, but our allies. Make your case.
Well, the United States really now has a problem with China, Russia, and Iran. That's not our choosing, that's theirs. And so right now you really see all of those countries on the march. And so the United States has an obligation to support those countries that are the ones that are being invaded or are under the threat of invasion. These weapons packages in particular are very different. The kinds of weapon systems Israel needs are very different than the kinds of weapon systems that Ukraine needs. And they're very different than what we need to send to the Pacific. The challenge is going to be, is the United States going to build a defense industrial base that can produce the necessary weapons that we need to at scale? It can be done, but this is a political decision. It's a matter of American will.
What about that? I mean, it does feel like we're on a war footing. You've got supplies going to Ukraine. We need to help in the Middle East. We've got these regimes on the march. Do we need to react like we're already at war?
I think that we do. We are there. And this is, again, it's a choice on the part of our adversaries. And so you can say, you know, the United States is tough. President Biden made the point about how we are the arsenal of democracy. Those are really nice words. They're more aspirational. But really what's going to deter our adversaries is not just speech, it's action. It's going to be American hard power. We have not done a good job of this since the Cold War. We've got to get back to actually having the manufacturing capability to produce these weapons for our friends, allies, and for ourselves.
Rebeccah Heinrichs, always glad to have your analysis. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks again.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.